Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to St. Rogers Street, where we are about all things DIY hand embroidery. If you're looking to learn some new stitches or level up your embroidery, you are in the right place because today I'm going to be teaching you 10 beginner embroidery stitches. Now down below in the description box you can find the stitch sampler that I am using, and that is available to you as a free download, so you can transfer that onto your hoop and stitch right alongside me. Now if you're super new to embroidery and you're not quite sure how to transfer this onto your hoop, or you're not exactly sure what embroidery supplies you need to get started, I linked a video above here on this card in the right screen of your device. You can click on that and it will take you to a video that will set you up for being ready for this video. I'll also link it in the description box below. But once you have that all transferred, we'll be able to get started on these 10 beginner stitches, and I'm so excited to help you learn and grow your embroidery skills. And so yeah, let's just go ahead and jump right in. So the running stitch is a very simple stitch. What you're going to do is going to come up through your fabric and then down a stitch length away. And then you're going to come up about that same distance away through the fabric, and then you're going to recreate what you just created, going to the right, creating another stitch. And this is called the running stitch. It's very well known for being used for backing embroidery hoops. Like if you create this stitch around the border of the back of your hoop and then pull on your strings tight at the end, it will act as a drawstring and close the back of your hoop and allowing you to finish a piece. So that's what it's most known for, but you can also definitely use this like on the hoop and in your embroidery designs. To make the back stitch, you'll come up through your fabric and go down about a stitch length away. You'll then come up through the fabric that same distance away, and then you're going to go down into that stitch where you just previously went down. So I'm going to pull my needle and go through here, and then I'm going to come up a stitch length away from that stitch I just made and go down where I originally came up to create that stitch. And so I'm just going to continue this alternating pattern to create the ever so common back stitch, which I'm sure you will find very helpful for your projects. To create the satin stitch, you'll come up through the fabric and then down wherever it is you are ending, or whatever you're filling in is ending, and then you'll come up right next to that stitch you originally started and then go down next to the stitch where you went down previously. So this one's all about coming up where you originally started and right next to that, and down where you previously just ended. And so I like to think of the satin stitch just as simply coloring. Like if you were coloring with a marker or a colored pencil, like you're just coloring. And so this stitch is all about filling things in. And so here you can also see that I kind of went a little bit too far and I left a gap, and that's totally a-okay. You can always come back and fill it in using these same steps. To make the lazy daisy stitch, I'm coming up at the base of the teardrop shape and I'm pulling my thread all the way through. Now I'm going down right back where I came up at, and I'm pulling my thread but not all the way through. Here I want to create a little loop, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of hold on to this loop so as not to lose it. Then I'm going to bring my needle up at the top of the shape, the other side of the teardrop shape. I'm going to come up and I'm going to place that loop over top my needle and pull the needle and thread all the way through. So this will create that petal shape, and I'm going to encompass it in place by going down just above the loop. Now let's try that again. So I'm coming up at the base of the petal, I'm pulling my thread all the way through, I'm going down back where I was just coming up, I'm creating this loop, holding onto the loop and coming up at the top of the petal, placing my loop over the needle, pulling my needle, and then going down through the fabric with my needle at the top of this petal. And that will secure it in place, and this is the Lazy Daisy stitch. So this stitch, of course, by the name you can tell, is perfect for making petals and perfect for making flowers or teardrop, raindrop shapes, whatever you can imagine and get creative with. Next up is the chain stitch. So I'm going to come up through my fabric, down through the same hole that I just came up in, and then I'm going to come up with my needle just about a stitch length away. And again, I'm leaving a loop here. You'll notice that this stitch is actually quite similar to the Lazy Daisy stitch. So I have a loop and I'm coming up a stitch length away, and I'm going through the loop this time. Then I pull on my thread, and there we are. So now I just went back through that same hole I came up in. Now I'm coming up through the thread a stitch length away and pulling. Now I'm going to go down that same hole I just came up in and come up a stitch length away through the little loop that I have created. And so you'll notice this pattern here, and you're just going to continue it for however long you want to chain stitch. So yeah, you'll notice this pattern is really quite similar to the Lazy Daisy stitch. It's just a matter of like going inside the loop instead of encompassing it outside the loop and finishing it. So basically the chain stitch is like a bunch of Lazy Daisy stitches chained together. Yeah, it's super fun, and I hope you enjoy this one. To make the French knot, you'll come up through your fabric and wrap your thread around your needle twice. I like to put my finger right on top of that and then go down through right where you just came up and give your needle a tug to pull it all down together. So coming up through the fabric, grabbing my thread, wrap it once, twice, I'm holding on to that thread and going back down in the same spot that I started. So again, up through the fabric, pull all the way, wrap once, twice, down through the same hole, and pull it all together. As you notice, you can tell like my left hand, you actually can't see my left hand, but whenever I'm going down through the fabric here, I'm holding on to it tight with my left hand. This actually just helps make it like come together well, or else sometimes it like gets knotted before you make your way all the way down. So that's something you can notice there. I'm holding on to it, holding on to it, holding on to it, still holding on to it, and now I let go at the very end. And I think that really helps to achieve like a knot that is not knotted, if that makes sense. But these ones can definitely be a little bit tricky at first, so go ahead and give them a couple goes and you will get the hang of it in no time. To make the stem stitch, come up through your fabric and then go down a stitch length away, but don't pull your thread all the way. We're gonna kind of leave some looseness here and come up through the middle of that gap there. Then you're gonna pull nice and tight, and then you're gonna go down a stitch length away from where you came up, pull, but keep it loose so you can add this stitch here coming up at that point, and then just continuing this pattern. So you're going down a stitch length away from where you started and then coming up right exactly at that point of where your last stitch ended. And so this is called the stem stitch, which it is clearly great for making stems, but it's also known as the outline stitch, and so it's also great for like lettering or outlining any other stitches like satin stitches, and just making it look really clean and smooth, as it's not like the back stitch where you can see all of the little holes or like where the stitch starts and ends. This one is more like smooth and twisty and pretty. So I hope you guys love this one because I super love this one. To make the split stitch, I'm going to come up through my fabric and go down a stitch length away. I'm going to pull my thread all the way and go like half a stitch length away, and then I'm going to go down right through the center of that first stitch, hence splitting the stitch. So I'm going a half stitch length away from the stitch I just made and then going down halfway through that stitch. And so I'm just going to repeat this all the way down across the way to complete this stitch. Now this is just one way you can do it. There's another way you can do it as well. So to do it the other way, you can go up through the stitch that you just made and then go down a stitch length away in your fabric and then come up and split that stitch and then go down a stitch length away. So it's totally personal preference as to which you prefer and which way feels most natural to you or easiest. So you can try both and see which one you prefer. To make this straight stitch, you'll come up from one end and down the other, and that is it, the simplest stitch out there. To make the fishbone stitch, you'll come up through the fabric at the pointed side of your petal and go down about halfway through the center. Then you're going to come up on one side of that stitch that you originally came up at, and you're going to make this diagonal and go across on the opposite side of the stitch you just ended at. Now you're going to switch sides and go on the opposite side that you were just at on top, pull your thread, and go on the opposite side on the bottom. Now again, we're going to repeat this since we came up from the left side. Now I'm coming up from the right side and then the opposite side down below. And every time I'm making these stitches down below, they're getting a little bit further and further closer to the bottom of the petal. So gradually we'll fill in this entire shape and it will go all the way down to the bottom, completing this petal. So you're just going to continue this alternating pattern all the way to the bottom until it's completely filled in, and you will be left with a beautifully stitched leaf. And that is it, my friends. Those are my 10 beginner embroidery stitches. I hope you learned lots And if you're ready to put these stitches into practice, I do currently have 2 free embroidery patterns on my YouTube channel where you can download the patterns, transfer them onto your hoop, and then stitch right alongside me. So one I have is a very simple snowflake, and then the second one is this winter A-frame pattern. Now it may look a bit intimidating, but it actually just involves these very basic stitches. Definitely recommend checking those out if you are ready to start your first or your next pattern with these beginner stitches. And until next time, my friends, happy stitching!